Chapter 8 Parallel Fates. Not everything dies, Mr. Mulder. The words echoed round in his head as fragments of memories began to form. He saw a petite blonde woman handing him a photo, the letters SRSG scrawled in blood on the floor of his old apartment, Special Representative to the Secretary-General of the United Nations. It was the assistant who had said those words to him, while tears blurred his vision. Then a picture had come into focus, revealing his sister. One of those carbon copies of Jeremiah Smith had taken him to see her. No, they had been clones of his little sister, working on a ginseng farm. Wait, it had been far more insidious than that. Bees, corn crops, running from black helicopters, the interior of a massive structure, humming, whirring of cogs as human bodies were transported in pods along conveyor belts, bodies infected with a virus, allowing an extraterrestrial being to gestate inside them, finding Scully trapped inside like a bug trapped in amber, a kind of gelatin substance enveloping her completely. Smashing open the encasement, he had to free her. Holding her almost lifeless body against him, she was naked, freezing, covered in that same greenish-yellow liquid. He had felt cold, lifeless lips whilst he tried to perform CPR in a desperate attempt to bring her back. Only now her mouth was warm and inviting. She was gyrating against him, sweat glistening on her soft skin as they rocked gently back and forth. He was inside her now, rhythmic thrusts as her body arched and head fell back, pushing her breasts against his torso. He grasped her slender form, his hand lowering to rest gently on the small of her back. One finger circling the tattoo etched onto her skin, Ouroboros, the serpent eating its own tail, the symbol of infinity. When he'd asked her why she'd chosen that particular design, her reply had been, because it meant everlasting, eternity. Nothing is ever really lost or can be lost. Oh, wait a moment. That was a line from the sexually charged book of poetry, Leaves of Grass. Whitman had always been his personal favourite. Not everything dies. That profound statement again, but not from Scully's mouth. No, these had been spoken by an ally, a female informant, Marita Covarrubias. His half-brother Geoffrey Spender had discovered her in that decontamination chamber after the syndicate had used her as a test subject, wandering round the facility in a hospital gown like a zombie, hair the consistency of straw, a bluish tinge to her skin which made it look spectrally pale, and a violet albino-type eyes, completely vacant. Listless, humans had been taken over, controlled by an entity, black oil. Like a new man. That turn of phrase had come from someone he despised, Alex Krycek, FBI agent turned rogue. The man who had killed his father. No, not his father. CGB Spender had been the man who had created him. Created? You can't bury the truth! He'd yelled that out at some point when he'd witnessed blistered bodies suffering from fourth-degree burns in an abandoned silo. They'd been run off the road, Alex and himself, only that ancient alien life form had been inside his former FBI partner. Men came to kill them. There was a bright light. Those same men were incinerated from the inside out by a type of radiation not of this earth. Intense heat. That was what he was experiencing now. But this was coming from the woman moaning against him. He heard Scully cry in sheer ecstasy as an intense orgasm ripped through his whole being. Sweat poured from their glistening bodies, both panting loudly. Only Scully's felt so incredibly hot to the touch. No, wait. She was glowing. A brilliant, iridescent light was emanating from her torso, surrounding them both. White hot. Jeez, he was on fire! She moaned softly, tossing and turning in the sheets as the dream manifested itself in her subconscious. She'd had night terrors of a similar nature, but this one terrified her more than the others. He was still lying on the strange operating table, limbs pinned down, face contorted out of shape as his cheeks were being stretched by clamps. Only this time he remained outstretched on the contraption, eyes closed, completely inanimate, motionless. That's when she noticed the purple hue of his naked flesh and could tell from this ugly tableau presented before her that the man was no longer breathing. There was no mistaking that fact now. Mulder was dead. Scully awoke with a start and jolted upright, gasping for air. Realizing she was in her own bed at home in Georgetown, she let out a sigh of relief, although remained rather shaken from the frightening vision she'd observed. At least it had only been a dream. Time. How is it defined exactly? The progression of events from the past into the future, meaning it can only move in one direction, forward, not backward. It is believed memory formation is the basis for human perception of time. Well, that's the scientific definition at any rate. Only there is also a theory this might all be an illusion. What has been, what is present, and what will be is actually happening in unison. According to the quantum world, time as we know it simply does not exist. Hidden behind an invisible force field of energy, making it unseen to the naked eye, a colossal, smooth, pitch-black metallic disc-shaped object remains stationary, keeping its macabre secrets locked away deep inside its core. Concealed from the outside world, this extraterrestrial spacecraft exists outside of time and space, beyond any human comprehension in what is known as the fourth dimension, where memories of your future self become imaginations of your present self, and vice versa. Consumed within the industrial interior of strange, jagged and curved asymmetrical shapes made from rock and steel, the outline of a figure in silhouette lays in what can only be described as a medical bay. He is shrouded in complete darkness, lost within memories of his own making. Overhead lights suddenly turn on, revealing the man is still being held down in the chair, with metal restraints piercing flesh and bone. The face still wrenched out of shape, distorting his once handsome appearance. His body now a sickly pale purplish-blue colour, with skin crumbling, disintegrating, as he remains there deathly still, almost as if he's been turned to stone. The large figure of the alien bounty hunter stares down at him with eager anticipation. His hazel eyes shot open and pupils immediately constricted due to a brilliant light prohibiting his ability to focus on his surroundings. He became conscious of the palm of a hand being pressed firmly against his forehead, and at first could feel a spark of warmth, which quickly became intense heat flowing into his veins, bringing him back from where? What followed was a prickling sensation, which quickly turned into an uncomfortable ache in his limbs, and then grew into a severe stabbing pain. A deep, resounding voice spoke, sounding full of triumph. "Welcome back, Mr. Mulder." A buzzing sound like angry bees could be heard. Then he felt the pressure in his face ease as one by one the hooks unclipped themselves and retracted back into the machine. The severe levels of tension he'd endured lessened somewhat, but releasing him from their vice-like grip only heightened the throbbing pain now beating against his skull. "Whoa," he managed to utter, voice sounding feeble, since he hadn't used his vocal cords for what seemed like years. Okay, slight exaggeration, but that's how long he felt he'd been there. Where? Where was he? His mind tried to process, which was not easy, as apart from the excruciating headache, muscles and tendons were screaming, causing him to draw out short, ragged gasps. Then it hit him like a thunderbolt. Oh, fucking Christ! He was back inside the alien spacecraft! No! He half stammered, half shrieked. Mulder's throat felt like sandpaper, and his yell of anguish came out thick and raspy, which developed into violent coughing, making it hard to breathe. "Try to relax," a voice spoke beside him. The hand was removed, and Mulder discovered he could now turn his head. Trying desperately to compose himself as best he could so as not to end up being asphyxiated, he glanced over at his tormentor, who was smiling down upon him, displaying a look of pure satisfaction. Groggily he tried raising himself up, only to realize this was an impossible feat. A brief glance and a wave of nausea swept over him when he observed why he couldn't move. Both the wrists and ankles were still impaled with metal bolts holding him firmly in place. Swallowing hard, which was extremely difficult to do due to abrasions on his throat, he struggled to form words on his cracked lips. "Fuck you, you bastard!" His voice choked him once more, but he didn't care. Hot tears were stinging his eyes now, and he blinked fiercely. "Fuck you to hell!" he croaked, shooting daggers at this otherworldly creature. "Why, Mr. Mulder, I just brought you back from a non-existent stasis. You really are being most ungrateful," it said in a belittling manner. "Ungrateful!" he said, completely shocked. He couldn't believe this thing was scolding him as if he was a petulant child. Just exactly what the fuck has he got to be grateful about? And what the hell did it mean by non-existent stasis? He tried to give the strange phrase some kind of definition. A thing of the past, something that is no more. Stopped! The words now chilled him to his very core. Had he been dead? Mulder hadn't registered anything but sheer agony since he'd awoken, if that was the word to use. Forcing himself to examine his body in more detail, he noticed his skin was discoloured, giving it a purple-greenish tint. What would Scully have called it? Marbling? Not only that, but it was also flaking, falling off right before his very eyes. Oh, shit! He looked like something right out of George A. Romero's The Night of the Living Dead. His first instinct was to throw up right there and then, but his mind was on other things, or rather a certain person. The woman he loved, Dana Scully. A tear fell down his cheek as he recalled the life he thought he'd been living. Then words poured out, practically incoherent. "No! Married! Scully! Baby! Left it! Paranormal! Shit! God!" This just couldn't be happening to him. "Why, yes, he did." The bounty hunter smiled again. Before the stricken man could say anything, he continued. "Mr. Mulder, you have been part of an experiment which I must say has been our greatest achievement." Just what the fuck was he babbling on about now? Experiment? And what did he mean by he? Had someone else had that life, not him? Who did? He asked in a hoarse whisper, not really wanting to hear the answer. To be completely honest, the only person that came to mind was the agent who'd replaced him while he'd been missing in action. Okay, had they even been his actual memories? Shit, he really couldn't tell what the hell was real anymore. "Doggett?" he asked sadly. "Was it Doggett?" "No," the alien replied. "It wasn't Special Agent John Doggett." Well, at least that was some sort of comfort. "Then who?" His words came out on a sob. Who in hell was he kidding? He was far from feeling bloody comfortable. The pain was eating into him, and he just wanted this whole fucking nightmare to end, now. "I will explain." The words came out clinical and detached. "We chose Special Agent Fox Mulder as he has been an important part of the project since birth. Our cloning program has been used before." He cut in sharply on hearing his name. "What the fuck do you mean you chose Fox Mulder? I am Mulder!" "Be quiet and let me continue," the creature commanded. He had to obey, otherwise they'd probably put him through even more extreme torture, or kill him again. Maybe that wasn't such a bad idea. As a matter of fact, he'd been contemplating suicide ever since he'd found himself back in this nightmare. He'd happily choose that way out if it meant he could escape from this terrifying realm of absurdity. "The procedure has once again been proven a success, and you are now being prepared for your return to his life." "His life?" Mulder asked despairingly. "Whose fucking life?" The alien wasn't listening. "You will be left in a place called Montana. They will find you, and then the process can begin." "State!" he said harshly. "It's a fucking state in America!" This was beyond all understanding. Had his memories really only been flights of fancy? What the hell? Desperately he tried to concentrate on the life he'd left behind, then realised there was one thing he could grasp onto with all his might. She'd rescued him. Scully had saved him from something. The process. Yes, He would have shed his skin and become an alien replicant. What? Like something out of Blade Runner? He glowered at the bounty hunter standing before him. "That has already happened, you bastard," he blurted out. "I was found in those woods and Scully stopped me from turning into one of your fucking foot soldiers." He took a breath and instantly felt a sharp twinge in his chest. Oh yeah, where they'd sliced him open. So this is all a damn lie, you motherfucker!" he howled, immediately making muscles constrict in his lungs, which caused hacking coughs to rack his whole body, and the debilitating pain escalated. The creature's reaction was simply put pure enjoyment. "Mr. Mulder, you really don't understand, do you?" It was almost laughing. Mulder's look was incredulous. "Then enlighten me, you sick, twisted bastard," he wheezed angrily, forcing himself to calm down so he could get his breathing back under control. He was pretty damn sure this alien ship masquerading as a medieval torture chamber wasn't going to have anything like an expectorant or even any morphine to help relieve his suffering. "Time. Such a fascinating concept that you humans believe in." "What?" he replied, thrown by this sudden change in subject. This thing was now going to lecture him on the meaning of time, on the meaning of existence. "I don't need a fucking science lesson," he growled in a raspy breath. The alien waved his arm around, indicating the man should look at his surroundings. "This vessel we are inhabiting, it exists outside your notion of space-time. Mr. Mulder, let me try putting it in such a way that you might grasp an understanding of what I am saying. What has happened is happening and will happen." Okay, that was supposed to clear things up. Condescending shithead. Mulder prayed to be anywhere but this point in time right now. "That makes no fucking sense whatsoever," he said, exasperated. His whole body was beginning to feel like one raw nerve ending, making it hard to concentrate on anything. Then, without any warning, a scientific term popped into his fogged-up brain. "Quantum physics," he said, surprising himself. "It's another theory. Only Scully knows more about it than—" His words trailed off as pleasant memories formed. Lying in bed, making love to her, saying "I do" at the altar. Everything had been so wonderful. Why did he have to exist at this particular moment? It just wasn't fair. He groaned, eyes glazing over, as he tried pleading to this monster's better nature, if it even had one. "Please," he began, allowing the tears to roll down his cheeks. "Let me go back to her." He pictured Scully's radiant smile as his sobs choked him. "Just please, God, let me go back." "But Mr. Mulder, you are back." The calm words rang hollow in his ears and he suddenly became furious. "No!" he screamed. "I am here, in your fucking spaceship. You tortured me to death and now are mentally tormenting the fuck out of me with this crap." He couldn't hold back any longer. "If you won't let me leave this hell, then for fuck's sake, please just kill me. But don't you dare even think about bringing me back next time, you bastard!" His outburst resulted in a fresh fit of coughing, which took even longer to subside, leaving him completely sapped of strength. The alien smirked at the damaged soul that lay before it. "Everything exists as one moment. You are the perfect clone that we have created, who will soon be returning to his life." Clone. Now he was a fucking clone. He really couldn't take any more of this shit. However, he was utterly exhausted and had no more energy left to fight, so tried in vain to shut out his sadist's droning voice as it continued explaining whatever it had to say. "You are also married to your touchstone, your confidant, your one true love. You have a daughter and are indeed living a life full of happiness." "Lucky me." His words came out frail as tears continued to flow. "Don't you see," the alien continued, "you are the same, right down to the last atomic particle. You both exist in and out of this concept you call time. It almost sounded sympathetic. "Those were not memories you witnessed, Mr. Mulder. They happened, or will happen, and are taking place right now. Like I said, we are absent from time. We exist, and yet we do not." Great, now I'm Schrodinger's fucking cat. Or maybe Dolly the fucking sheep, he thought miserably. "Please, enough now," he pleaded helplessly. He noticed the bounty hunter's unfazed expression and added, "Look, whoever the hell I am, just fucking kill me." Mulder closed his eyes, knowing these creatures would show no mercy by fulfilling his wish. So he would never find peace. He'd been brutalized, suffered cruel abuse at the hands of these sadistic intergalactic torturers. They had literally broken him, worn him down. He was completely drained, and now there was nothing left inside. "Hush, Mr. Mulder." He felt the alien stroke his hair and shuddered in disgust. "Your moment has almost arrived." He really couldn't process any more of this insanity any longer, so pictured himself in Scully's arms, being rocked gently as she caressed him softly, his befuddled brain suggesting that if he concentrated hard enough he would leave this nightmare behind and return to his home and the fairy tale life he'd left behind. "Where's your ruby slippers when you need them?" he half-joked pathetically. He could hear the bounty hunter's words, only they now seemed lost in some distant fog. "The moment when we return you to your reality." Then everything faded away.